Hello, hello. In week 2 of October. Today I'm going to talk to you about understanding in relation to trust. Remember, our topic for this month is trust, and we are going to have a look at how understanding our young person and understanding ourselves. If you know about complex connections, we always look at ourselves as well. Always connecting with ourselves in order to connect with our young person. We're looking at how we can understand ourselves better in order to build mutual trust with our young person. And I think trust is a really tricky one, because I think a lot of people have a lot of, I want to kind of say, baggage around trust. There's definitely going to be negative experiences for us as adults. There's going to be times when our trust has been broken. There's going to be times when we've put trust in somebody and they've let us down. There may be times when we've broken somebody's trust. So there's going to be a whole lot of stuff that comes along with this issue of trust. As I said last week, building trust with our young person, we have to lead by example. Our young person is not going to build trust if they too don't feel trusted. So it's very much a mutual kind of interaction. It's something that we need to model to them. It's something that we need to almost lead by example and show them how to build that trust. I think a child will have that innate trust of their parent, but if there have been instances where that may have been tested or stretched or even broken, you have to remodel it to them. And remembering as well that we are not the only influence on them. There may well be times when friends have broken their trust or other adults have let them down. So it's very much a case of working with them and building their trust between you and them in order to strengthen that connection. I think what's important to realize is, I've talked before about a power over relationship. When you have a power over relationship with your child, when you use that power over parenting, what often happens is that you lose trust, because you almost never place trust in your child. You are constantly dictating to them. You are telling them how things have to be. You are directing them and you are forcing them to do certain things. Sometimes with a power over relationship, and this may not be applicable to you, but you may have used these tactics. You may have used some kind of fear-based ways to get them to do what you want to do. Sometimes even inadvertently we may use shame to get our young people to behave in a certain way. And trust is not going to be built with that kind of parenting. You need to allow more a power with relationship, so that your young person has a voice. They are able to give you input. They are able to make decisions with you. You are collaborating with them. This is what builds trust. When you have that power over relationship, I think young people, children, really young children, will feel that they need to deceive you in some way to do what they want to do. They may need to do things in an underhanded way. They may need to withhold the truth from you, because if you knew the truth, you would not be happy with that and they wouldn't be able to do what they want to do. Far better to have that power with relationships, so that they can talk to you about that and they can tell you what they'd like to do. Not necessarily they're going to be able to do that, but hopefully you can collaborate and reach an agreement between you and build that trust in the process. I think as well it's really important to mention that lying, that is something which is very developmental. There's a certain age at which children realize, and it's a fairly young age, that they realize that you don't always know what's going on in their head. When they're really young, they have this view of the world that you know what they're thinking and they know what you're thinking, and everything revolves around them. And then at a certain age, they realize that you may not know what's going on in their head. You may not know everything that they do. And so they begin to push the boundaries, and they may begin to tell you things that didn't really happen, or they begin to tell you lies, untruths, fibs, whatever you want to call them. And this is very developmentally normal, and this is exactly what we want for our young person. This is a process of them realizing that they are independent from you and that they don't have to be dependent on you. So it's that the beginning of that process of kind of forming their own identity. When lying becomes problematic, is it can also be a response to trauma. So, we've got a response to trauma may be flight or freeze or fight. So children can become very aggressive, they may need to run away, they may freeze and withdraw. Those are all trauma responses. Those are responses that their nervous system triggers. So they are not consciously deciding to run in that instance, or they're not consciously deciding to withdraw or to fight, to become aggressive. It is their nervous system triggering that response in their body. Lying is a trauma response. So children may not even consciously make a decision to tell you something different to what reality is. It may be a response that happens. Most often in neurodivergent individuals, it can be because the problem, they don't know how to solve the problem that they're in. So they may have got themselves into a situation and they don't know how to solve it. They don't know how to get out of that situation. So lying becomes their go-to response. And they may have told you the lie before they even consciously go, oh my goodness, what have I said? By then it's too late, because then they may be shamed, or they may lose your trust, or they may sever that connection, whatever it happens to be. And so they continue with that lie in order to protect themselves. And I think it's really important to understand that, because lying can be a huge trigger for us as parents. We don't want our children to be lying to us. We often see it as a really deliberate and deceptive thing for them to do. There's a view in society that lying is wrong. I mean, sometimes it can be a little hypocritical, because as adults, we effectively cover over things or brush over things or withhold information often. If we really look at our own behavior, the things that we tell somebody are not necessarily always true, but sometimes a child lying to us seems a lot worse than our little brush over of the truth in order not to make somebody feel bad. And it's a really, really fuzzy line. There's a lot of gray area there. But I think if we can understand that lying is a trauma response, sometimes it gets triggered by trauma or a real anxiety or whatever it happens to be, we can understand and we can show compassion for our young person, and we can work through that with them. We don't want them to keep telling lies, because we don't want them to be experiencing something so severely that that's a go-to. We want to help them through it, but we need to show compassion for them and understand that before we are able to alter our perspective and do things differently. And I think I've said it already, understanding our own triggers around trust, understanding our own triggers, knowing how we view trust, how we're going to model it to our child, what we're expecting from them as well. Understanding that trust is built up over time. Yes, they'll have complete trust in us when they're little, but as life happens and they have friends and they're influenced by other adults, that trust may be broken down. And especially if things have been difficult in our connection with them, we may need to rebuild trust from the ground up. It's going to take time. It's going to be a process. So I hope that's helpful in understanding trust. And next week, I'm going to talk more about how we can use communication to build trust with our young person.